You mean Stephen Stone?
Well, you had no trouble remembering his name.
So I think it's about time that we discuss the absolute butchering of a certain Hoenn champion. From the top of his game, one of the biggest celebrities and icons in the world, to an insecure shadow of the man that he once was. Today we're talking about none other than Wallace. Former contest master, former champion of Hoenn, this man was a living legend with an insane introduction. So let's see how he went from that to an absolute joke in Pokemon Journeys. So Wallace was actually skipped over in the advanced generation. There was no mention of him. We never actually saw or got confirmation of who the Hoenn champion was. We did meet Stephen Stone on Dewford Island, a very brief meeting with Ash where he gave them a cool place to train for Ash's rematch with Brawly. But that was really it. He had a cool debut using his Aggron to completely destroy Team Rocket. But in the grander scheme of things, Stephen didn't appear or wasn't important again until XY. But then we got to Sutopolis City, and Juan is the gym leader. One of the best gym battles in my opinion, super underrated battle between him and Ash. But again, there's no mention of Wallace here. In the game, Juan is actually the mentor to Wallace before he goes on to become the champion, which would have been cool to get some sort of backstory in the anime about, but Wallace was just nowhere to be seen. That is until Diamond and Pearl, where he appears at Lake Valor, just as his own competition is about to commence, the Wallace Cup. Basically a giant contest that anyone from any region can enter. Such a cool idea. Diamond and Pearl once again cooking up some fantastic original ideas and writing. And it's mainly Diamond and Pearl's characterization of Wallace that makes you wonder how far he must have fell to where he was in Journeys, because Dawn and friends find him by the lake. He's just chilling so gracefully. He wants to get away from all the noise, the paparazzi. The dude is just so cool. He has that much aura. He gets so much attention that he needs a break, and we see him peacefully having some downtime by the lake with his Milotic. It's really such a great introduction, which made me really like his character. He is so down to earth. He helps Dawn out with her contest crisis and not knowing what she should do next. We see his elegant Milotic gliding through the misty water. It's such a calming introduction for him. He is the chillest guy and nothing like what we see later on.
Well, hello there, everyone.
He's also a big help to both Ash and Dawn because he tells Ash himself to enter the Wallace Cup so that Weasel can get some contest action since he missed out on that while he was with Dawn. And it also continues the narrative and shows that Wallace is interested in the trade that happened, and the fact that this Pokemon was owned by a battler and a coordinator probably reminds him of himself being a champion and a contest master. Also, Weasel being a water type, it just all adds up quite nicely. And that's it really. We don't really see much more of him. He acts as a judge for the Wallace Cup every now and again, giving some words of wisdom, but it was this introduction that made its mark. We don't really hear or see much about him for a while after this. We do know that another Wallace Cup was taking place in Johto around the time of Black and White, which Dawn planned to enter, which was another cool bit of info, but I really wish we could have seen that. But then comes the XY series. Stephen Stone is now the champion of Hoenn. My man Wallace has been replaced, and this is when his dark spiral of depression begins. He obviously never recovered from losing his crown to Stephen and held a grudge this whole time. Poor fella. It is very interesting and funny that the anime did things in the reverse order. Obviously in the game Stephen is the champion in Ruby and Sapphire, and then he is replaced by Wallace in Emerald. You can still go and fight Stephen and he's pretty tough, so it's probably more like he stepped aside rather than was replaced. But here in the anime, Wallace is salty as hell. He was definitely replaced and kicked out the champion chambers with no redundancy pay. But either way, we know how cool Stephen was during XY, and I'm so glad they did bring him back and gave him the flowers he deserved. And although a little underwhelming, it was really cool to see him return in the Masters 8 and have that battle with Ash. That was actually hinted at all the way back in the Advanced Generation, that one day that these two would battle. So it's very cool that we can look back and know that it happened.
Maybe I'll battle him someday.
I'm sure you two will meet up at some point in your journeys. Yep, Stephen has thought only about Pokémon since he was a little boy.
But the battle itself can be pretty underwhelming, but also Ash can be known as the Hoenn Champion Slayer, because not only did he beat Stephen in the Masters 8, like 12 episodes earlier he defeated Wallace as well. So yeah, let's talk about that return that made everyone either laugh or cry. Personally, Wallace returning was hilarious. His whole shtick was my sense of humour, it was overbearing. Ash and Go just kept running off trying to make it to the contest that Chloe was competing in. And side note, you can blame Wallace that Ash and Serena didn't get longer together because she was at that contest. Ash would have been reunited with her sooner, but no, this man Wallace, he says he's not competing in the Pokemon World Championship, but he saw Ash on TV and he wants to battle him. And Ash is completely oblivious on who this guy is and he just keeps trying to run away. He has no idea. And then when he remembered Steven straight away, Wallace is fuming. It's just so different to how Wallace was in his first appearance, in that he couldn't get away from the media, he wanted to be alone, he wanted some downtime. But here he seems so set on being known and remembered and holding a little grudge on Steven for taking his place. It's honestly so funny, but I get why people were annoyed with this because he was a gym leader, a champion, a contest master. He's one of the most experienced trainers in the world and he was getting clowned on so much here and he deserved a lot better. Poor Go is having to watch the contest on his phone. We've all been there, buddy. While Ash and Wallace just battle it out because Ash was such a battle-driven maniac in Journey, so he was never going to turn this down. The problem is this should have been a whole thing. I get the comedic flow of it, it works. I don't think it is bad storytelling. It's just a shame that we couldn't get this whole other battle and development. It would make the battle with Juan shine more and it would also set up the battle with Steven in the Masters 8. I feel like they maybe wanted to do this full battle but didn't have budget or time, so they just squashed it into this episode. But Pikachu, the Milotic Slayer, returns and Ash wins the battle. Ash casually taking down a champion level trainer like it's nothing. On the side of the street, it's just a side quest to him. So Wallace lost the battle, that's it, right? No, it doesn't even stop there. This man's humiliation just goes on and on. Wallace gives Ash a badge, which Ash doesn't even want because he's already got it. Then he just flops his scarf on him and Ash is looking so uncomfortable. It is funny, I mean, it is hilarious. I do have to give the writers some credit, but they've just made a joke out of this national icon. And to make it worse, the episode cuts away from him mid-sentence to continue the joke, which is also actually really funny, so I can't blame them.
Take you to the World Coronation Series, or you could pursue Poké.
So logically, this episode annoys me because Wallace deserved to be treated better. But from a pure comedy side of things, this is actually so funny. It's probably one of the funniest jokes in Journeys, a series that I don't think particularly had great comedy. But I do wish this would have been its own full episode. And not to mention the cramming of it alongside Serena's story. And not really letting Ash and Serena meet properly, which was handled really poorly in my opinion. They spoke for like 1 minute if that. It was a big disappointment. Her return in general was nice, but I would have liked them to share more screen time. And we can all blame Wallace, the man who went from an iconic legend hounded by the press to a washed fraud who was selling badges outside a contest hall trying to rekindle some of his glory. All jokes aside though, I really like Wallace as a character in Diamond and Pearl especially. I wish he was done justice in Journeys, but hey, at least he returned and we got some laughs.